We're going to start our next breakout session. We have Hilary Arens from Snowbird here. She's going to present on how the symposium Bred Snowbird Sustainability Program, a 10-year review.
Hello, I'm so glad to be here. I see a lot of familiar faces in the room from people I used to work with at Division of Water Quality. One of my best friends came today to see me, and my daughter actually is skipping school to be here. So I'm really happy to be here. I invite you to join me, if everyone doesn't mind standing up for a moment. So if it's your first year at the symposium, welcome. And I ask you to sit down. If you have been at more than 5 symposiums, I welcome you to sit down. If you've been more than 10 symposiums, I welcome you to sit down. Okay, more than 15 symposiums, 17 symposiums. I think that Marion Hubbard, myself, and Bob might be the only ones left standing, and Brent Beardall. Well, I'm glad you're all here today. So I know many of you from my time at Division of Water Quality. I was there for about 8 years, and I loved my job. I got to stand in creeks. I got to go out on the Great Salt Lake in airboats. I was a Jordan River and Utah Lake coordinator for the Division of Water Quality. So I helped manage the surface water for all of the creeks that flowed into the Jordan River or the Utah Lake. And my favorite part of my job was going up Little Cottonwood Canyon. These 2 pictures were taken about a year before I started working at Snowbird, but I got to go on an early tram and I got to go into Mineral Basin and talk about water quality. And I just thought it was the best day of my life, taking pictures out there before anyone got on the ski slope. It was great, taking selfies in the tram. And then the 2015 symposium came. And I was really excited to see a panel discussion with Laura Briefer moderating. Bob Bonar, who is the former GM and president of Snowbird, was on the panel. Some other folks, Robert Davies from USU, Joan DeGiorgio from the Nature Conservancy, Dan McCool, and Paul Miller from NOAA. And that moment was a moment that changed my life, as I have sometimes referred to as my watershed moment. So I'm hearing Bob Bonar, who I had a number of regulatory meetings with while I was at the state, and he was speaking about how Snowbird cared about the environment and water quality and air quality and climate action. And I kind of sat there and I had this moment of like, yeah, if you cared that much, you'd have someone that was managing that for you at Snowbird. And I kind of had this moment because he was always the one at the regulatory meetings, so I know it was high priority for Snowbird, but they didn't have anyone interpreting that and what the state was doing. They were really involved alongside Alta in some of the zinc impairments from the Wasatch Drain Tunnel in Little Cottonwood. So we had done a number of projects up there. And then I had this light bulb moment of, oh my gosh, they should hire me to do that. So I texted my sister and I said, I think I just created my dream job. What do I do? And she said, ask him out for coffee. So after the panel, I went up to Bob, and he knew me because of the regulatory meetings. And I said, Bob, do you have time for coffee? And he said, why don't we go grab lunch? So I left the symposium, I left the free lunch, and we went out for lunch. And he later admitted that he wanted to do that immediately because he thought he was in trouble with the state for something. So we went out for lunch, and I said, I hear what Snowbird cares about the environment and that you want to make it a priority for climate action, but I don't believe you have anyone doing that job. And he said, you're right. I don't even know where to start. How would I hire someone for that? And I said, I actually think I'd be your ideal candidate for this job. And he said, this is interesting. Tell me more. So we sat there, and I said, it's only half an hour old, this idea. But I think I could, manage the watershed because that's what my background is in. And I think I could learn how to work in sustainability, spoke about return on investment and carbon reductions and carbon emissions. And he said, why don't you write me a job description? So I spent Thanksgiving of 2015 writing a job description of what I would want to do if I had my dream job, and met with him around just after Christmas. And in January of 2016, they hired me, and I started in March of 2016. So when I was looking through some photos from the symposium, I came across this photo, and it floored me because I don't think everyone has a photo. That's me sitting right there, listening to Bob I'm probably texting my sister in this photo of the moment that their lives changed for the better. So now I get to work at Snowbird. Snowbird has a long history of environmental protection and prioritization. This is a quote from Dick Bass, who was one of the co-founders of Snowbird. I'm just going to read it. My underlying dream for Snowbird is the creation of a year-round resort which respects and complements the beauty and inspiration of this natural setting, a place dedicated to increasing human understanding through the enhancement of body, mind, and spirit. So through this long history of Snowbird's prioritization of the environment, I knew that I was coming into the right place. I wanted to highlight a few things that Snowbird had done before my time there. When Snowbird started in 1971, they had applied for a Water Quality Board grant to put a sewer line in Little Cottonwood Canyon. That was not granted, so Dick Bass put his money in to put the sewer line in Little Cottonwood Canyon, recognizing that the septic systems that Alta and the homes up there were on was not going to be sufficient for the dream that he had for Snowbird. They also started water quality monitoring that year. So we have a 54-year record of water quality monitoring that we've done at Snowbird, which is impressive. In the 1980s, they put a cogeneration plant in. Cogeneration uses natural gas to run turbines, and then we take that waste heat and we heat the water at Snowbird. And that system was updated in 2021. And now Snowbird, while still tied to Rocky Mountain Power and the grid, in case our system goes down, we can generate 100% of our power through the Snowbird power systems. In the early 2000s, Mineral Basin opened for skiing, which is the backside of Snowbird. So then Snowbird was not just responsible for managing the top of the watershed on the Little Cottonwood side, but also the Mineral and American Fork side. Two very different but equally important watersheds. Little Cottonwood is protected for drinking water, and American Fork is protected for cold water species. Some other pioneering feats that I'm really proud of with this history of Snowbird. They pioneered the Ski Conservation Fund, which is through the National Forest Foundation. And every dollar that Snowbird or other ski areas now donate to the National Forest Foundation, the National Forest Foundation will match that dollar 50 cents on the dollar. So that's been years, and it 1.5 times our donations that we're able to give to the National Forest Foundation, which stays right in our national forest here in Salt Lake. They also worked with EPA to pioneer the Good Samaritan Clause, which is a series of laws that historically private landowners are disincentivized from doing abandoned historic mine remediation because of the potential risk and liability. So the Good Samaritan laws takes that liability off of the private landowner during the time of remediation. So we often have worked with Trout Unlimited for that period. And Trout Unlimited does the project, takes the liability, and then once the project's done, the long-term operation and maintenance goes back into the private landowner. So that's been used all over the country, and Snowbird was the first private landowner to have done that. And we won some awards in the early 2000s with EPA and DEQ for pioneering that. So I think this slide is funny. I wanted to kind of give you a little idea of what my job is at Snowbird. This is what my family thinks I do. They think I lay in avalanche holes and wait for patrol dogs to find me, or that I just hug trees. What my friends think I do, they think that I telemark ski around the mountain and get helicopter rides in and out, on a powder day. What I think I do some abandoned mine remediation. I've gotten to lobby in DC for climate action. And on the bottom there is the Wasatch Drain Tunnel and the plug that keeps 35 million gallons of water in the Wasatch Drain Tunnel that Snowbird has underground water treatment for drinking water for all of Snowbird. What my coworkers do, they think I hang a lot of signs. We're part of the Slow the Flow program. We encourage use of our water fountains, and we've gotten rid of all of our single-use plastic water bottles at Snowbird. And we do a lot of tree plantings and invasive species pulls up at Snowbird. What I actually do is I hang out with trash cans a lot. I work on recycling, which is an impossible problem. And I also help manage the cleaning of the White Pine bathrooms just below Snowbird. What I really do is I help manage the Play Forever program, which is our parent company is named Powder. And it's their corporate commitment to responsibly manage and protect the environment and support our community. Part of protecting the environment is sustainability projects, engagement, and advocacy for long-term viability of the business and of the planet, looking at energy, waste, and land. And then the community side is financial contributions, in-kind donations, and volunteerism to strengthen the places that we live, work, and play. Some of the other resorts that Powder owns, Mount Bachelor, Copper, Woodward Park City. And the three pillars of the community aspect are local relief, participation, and the environment. So how does Snowbird protect the environment? Well, I mentioned our cogeneration plant, we now call Snowbird Power Systems. We increased our efficiency and reduced our emissions with this new plant. We've also now have 15 electric vehicle charging stations at Snowbird. It's the largest array of any of the resorts in the Cottonwoods. We just opened 6 new ones this week. They're in the pond lot, so it's primary parking, and we're really excited to work with Leaders for Clean Air and Subaru to open those new ones. We also provide bus passes to all of our season pass holders and all of our employees, and we have myriad of ways for our employees to get to the mountain. I just counted each day, we have 103 options, including vans and buses to get our employees up to the mountain. And we've started to offer our employees incentives. So for every 5 times they come to work by van or bus or carpool of 3 or more, they get $12 of Snowbird cash. So about once a week they get lunch on Snowbird. And we've expanded our Canyon Carpool Club this year. So when our guests download the app and they scan a QR code, which is by the 3+ parking, which we have tripled in the past few years of how many 3+ parking spots we reserve. When they download that app and they scan or they take the bus, they earn prizes. Some of those are discounts on food, discounts on clothing. For this year, we've introduced a cool Snowbird beanie when you hit 7, and at 10, you earned a half-price transferable ticket that you can give to anyone at Snowbird, or anyone to come ride at Snowbird. And then my favorite piece, which I think is really the exciting one, is we pick the 10 most committed carpoolers every month, and we open Gadzoom an hour early. With one of our chairlifts, we open an hour early for guided skiing for those 10 most committed carpoolers, which I think is great. We've also done a lot in our waste management program. We have, since we started recycling glass, we have recycled almost 500,000 pounds of glass, keeping that out of the landfill. And we've processed our food waste. Almost 500,000 pounds of food waste has not gone to the landfill either. And we, like I said, we participate in the Slow the Flow program. For protection of land, we participate each year with the town of Alta in the Little Cottonwood Canyon cleanup. We work with the Cottonwood Canyons Foundation on invasive species management and trail maintenance in the Cottonwoods. We are highly involved with the Central Wasatch Commission. We also are part of the Keep It Pure initiative with Salt Lake City Public Utilities. And we've worked closely with Tread Lightly and Trout Unlimited for restoration work in Mary Ellen Gulch. So I'm going to talk a little bit more about Mary Ellen Gulch. I just want to orient you to Little Cottonwood Canyon. You can see on this slide the top of Hidden Peak, which is the top of Snowbird Tram. We're now looking on the south side of Snowbird. So this is the canyon that goes into American Fork. You can see the 2 lifts on this slide, Baldy and Mineral Basin, and then in the canyon over is Mary Ellen Gulch. You can see down here, it says Live Yankee Complex. That is an abandoned mine that Snowbird owns, and it is one of the few wet mines in Utah. We have, I believe, 20,000 abandoned mines in the state of Utah, and 2% of those are wet. So this one, the Live Yankee, consistently flows at 0.17 CFS, which is just 0.3% of the total flow of American Fork River. So it's a pretty minor influence onto American Fork, which is way down below Site 6. You can't quite see it on the map, but we collect water above the Live Yankee, and then the more interesting locations are below the Live Yankee, which is Site 3, which is immediately below the Live Yankee, and then Site 4, which is downstream just a little bit, still on Snowbird property, and then Site 5, which is down the canyon a little bit more. And historically, people and ATVs have driven out and hiked over the Live Yankee mine. You can see in this photo here, there can sometimes be a lot of traffic out there. And what we realized at Snowbird is that one of the best ways to reduce erosion, improve runoff, was to close access for ATVs driving out on the Live Yankee mine. So you can see on the map on the right, there is a red line in the middle. We refer to that as the riparian road. It's along the Globe mine, which is just above the Live Yankee. The Globe mine is just old adits, no water coming out of them. But we thought that if our goal is to protect environmental and human health, then the best thing we can do is to close ATV access. Now you can still get around. Those yellow roads are still give ATV access, and we still allow people to walk up and down and enjoy some of the historic buildings out on the Live Yankee. But in working with EPA and Division of Water Quality, we thought this would be the best thing to do to start to protect environmental health. And as you can see from these pictures, these are all pictures of the road that has historically been shut down to, or since 2017, shut down to ATV usage, and the road is coming back to life. It's amazing to walk through there. It's lush and it's green, and you can really see the environmental benefits just visually being on the road. But you can also tell from water quality that it's improving as well. So Site 3 is directly below the Live Yankee mine. Site 4 is just a couple hundred meters below that. Site 5 is lower down in the canyon, and Site 6 is just before the confluence with American Fork River. If the zinc is the only consistent impairment we see for the Live Yankee. And that tracks with the impairments that we see on the front side of Little Cottonwood Canyon as well. So if it's red, it's greater than 10% above the standard of 120 milligrams per liter. If it's in yellow, it's within 10% of the standard or is at the standard. And if it's green, it's below the standard. So you can see right below where the Live Yankee comes in, there's often impairments. They especially are concentrated around winter when the rest of the water in the canyon is pretty low, and the influence of that Live Yankee, that 0.17 CFS, has more influence on the creek. And then below Site 3, there's not many impairments. At Site 4, there are a few in 2021, but as you can see, from Site 4 especially, in 2017, those 4 red bars, as soon as we shut down the road, the water quality improved greatly. Site 5, we rarely have exceedances, and Site 6, before it gets to American Fork River, there's never been an exceedance that we've marked. Moving on to how Snowbird protects our community. One of the programs I'm really proud of, which started in 2021, is Snowbird's Play Forever Wednesdays. And that is every Wednesday throughout the season. Snowbird will donate $5 to a different nonprofit organization that supports the environment, local relief or participation. And since we started, we've donated almost $200,000 to these Play Forever organizations. And through other in-kind donations, Snowbird has donated almost $500,000 to different organizations since 2021. Another part of our Play Forever goals is to engage and educate our community. And we do this through working with different universities, different nonprofit organizations, and our partnerships with different other organizations. We've worked with the University of Utah to have background air quality monitoring sites since 2006 on the top of Hidden Peak. And we've worked also with research at Westminster College and Utah State University. I did mention our work with with the Good Samaritan Law, with EPA back in the early 2000s. Some of our partnerships with the Forest Service and managing the watershed up there with Salt Lake City Public Utilities. We are a founding member and a current board member of the Cottonwood Canyons Foundation. And Snowbird also, like I said, is a longtime partner with the National Forest Foundation. One of the things that I'm really excited about and the direction that we're going at Snowbird is focus on the Great Salt Lake. There was an article in 2022 from the New York Times calling the Great Salt Lake an environmental nuclear bomb. Does anyone remember this article? And so we were already focused and working on the Great Salt Lake issues, but we thought that it's time to put even more effort into the Great Salt Lake issues. We at Snowbird recognize that we're at the top of a watershed and that we're intrinsically tied to the Great Salt Lake. So we figured we would use our voice and our resources and our space to increase awareness and education around the Great Salt Lake. And we partnered really closely with the Nature Conservancy on this. So we do something called Ski for Nature. We've done it for the past 5 years, and we have brought in speakers working with the Nature Conservancy into the Snowbird Ballroom. It's usually in March. We invite the public and our guests to come join us, and we provide coffee and pastries, and they're lured in from the cold for having some hot drink and learning about the Great Salt Lake. And we've had discussions about the brine shrimp, from dust on snow events to the greatest snow on earth. And keep your eye out, we'll have another one this March up at Snowbird. One of the other things that I'm just going to go back to this slide, our parent company, Powder, has been really focused on Great Salt Lake issues and has been instrumental in starting the Great Salt Lake Alliance, which I got permission to announce that we just hired Lindsay Smith from Utah Clean Air to be the first executive director of the Great Salt Lake Alliance. And the goal of that alliance is a nonpartisan and economy-first focused on advancing durable long-term solutions that protect the lake and with it, Utah's future. So I'm excited to be part of that and get to participate with shaping the Great Salt Lake Alliance and getting to continue the connection that Snowbird has with the lake. Thank you.
What is Snowbird's current stance on the gondola?
I am gracefully going to decline answering on that. There's so many podcasts out there and articles. You are welcome to go search.
In snowmaking, do they put some chemical in the snow?
Nope, no additives.
Okay.
It has to be below 28 degrees for us to make snow, but they put no additives in it.
Okay. Are there some places that do? I've heard
I don't know. I don't know
okay.
if they need to.
Great. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks, Hilary. That was great. I'm just curious, from your perspective, what are the biggest threats in the future to both Snowbird's operation and, by extension, the Wasatch and the watershed?
Well, the obvious answer to me is climate change. We're not going to be in business if we don't get cold, white winters. Snowbird's looked at some adaptation strategies for how do we expand our business into summer months. Some of you might have gone to Oktoberfest that lasts much longer than October. And I think the other major issue that's facing the Wasatch is transportation. And we're trying to find innovative ways to work through that, but it's tricky. You pull one string and something else gets affected.
Hi, I have a question. I am pretty amazed to see how if you pull ATV off a road, it can dramatically improve water quality. But does that mean if we rescind the roadless rule or let more surface roads be built in the wilderness area, it will also cause more pollutants to flow down to our water source?
That's a good question. I don't know much. I can't answer about the roadless rule, but I can say that ATVs, especially in sensitive environmental areas, are going to cause more erosion than if you remove them from the equation.
Hi, Hilary.
Hi, Theron.
I'm curious about, has anybody approached you about the PFAS issue and ski wax?
Yep, yep. That is an interesting topic. We're looking at removing all of our PFAS from all of our ski wax and only using PFAS-free ski wax. You know, we're not ready. I have a hard time getting rid of all of our uniforms with Gore-Tex to then replace it with ones that aren't Gore-Tex. But as we move through our uniforms over time, I'm sure we're going to be exploring other options.
Hi. I appreciate this. I worked at Snowbird for 2 seasons, and the employee carpool was phenomenal. I barely drove up the canyon myself, and I was wondering if you guys have data or collected data on how many people were using that and how many cars were theoretically taken off the road.
I do have data. I cannot pull it from the top of my head. One of the other areas that I'm really proud of with Snowbird is that we make our data transparent through the National Ski Area Association's yearly climate challenge report. So we do report on our carbon emissions and our carpooling, our scope 1, 2, and 3 emissions. So if you're interested in that, especially as a former Snowbird employee, I'd be more than happy to talk about that. What we are doing this winter is we are going so far as we're highly discouraging our employees from driving up on weekends, even in carpools. Even so much so that my general manager and the head of mountain operations are going to be leaving their house at 4:30 on Saturdays and Sundays to carpool up together. So, you know, they have to have a little bit more flexibility in their day-to-day, but I think it's the right direction to be getting cars off the road and opening up. We have so many options with the UTA bus. So.
I'm back to PFAS. I know you've talked about ski wax and the Gore-Tex. When I was in manufacturing, we had to go to the maintenance department and list everything that we used that had PFAS and then find a different chemical. Have you done that yet?
No.
That might be a consideration.
Yeah, I'd love to hear more about
Yeah.
Um, Before COVID, the UTA bus schedule was a lot more accessible and frequent.
Mhm.
And I'm wondering if you guys, as Snowbird and with the Great Salt Lake Alliance, could use your voices to advocate for a better schedule again, maybe better pay for bus drivers who have to go up into the snowy mountains. I just, as someone who goes up regularly and is cramming into a car, I know we would all love
Mhm.
to go up on the bus every single weekend.
Have you taken the bus in the past 2 years?
I have.
So we were told 3 years ago, about a week before the season opened, that the 953 bus from the north was no longer going to be running. So it was just the 994 from the south, which obviously put us on our heels, and we had a lot to recover from. So we didn't have that bus for a year. And then last year, UTA, and believe me, we tried to offer them drivers for the buses, and since they're a unionized organization, we could do nothing to influence in that way. But last year, they have something called supplemental service, or CS1 and the CS2 bus. So the CS1 bus is kind of the employee buses that go up early in the morning. Guests are welcome, but it's the ones that start at 6 a.m. And then the CS2 bus from the north starts at the 6200 South Park and Ride. And I'm happy to say that they did hear us, and the bus is every half hour throughout the day. Heading up and heading down. So there are consistent buses from the north now and consistent buses from the south. The 994 still has a regular half-hour schedule, and so does the CS1 and CS2 from the north. So your voice has been heard, and I encourage you, if you are a Snowbird pass holder, download the app so you can start earning some great prizes.